$1.5 million, sleeping your way to the top. And what you call me? Let's get into this Fox Sports lawsuit, y'all, here on the Parker's Couch. Hello, and happy 2025 to all of you out there. Making my first video recording. Well, we did a live, so we had it, so that's not completely accurate. Go check out our live on the Golden Globes with my brother and I, and our other brother, the Fashion Doll. Yes, we did our little review on the Golden Globes, so please check that out. But this is my first official recording of what we're going to get into the Parker's Couch here in 2025. Yes, 2024 was a great year. Had a great time really learning this content creator thing. You know, the bumps and bruises along the way. Had some time to reflect, think about what I really enjoyed through 2024 and really enjoyed covering. So in 2025, you're going to get a lot of lawsuit coverage because I really enjoyed going beyond the headlines and really reading the court cases and getting all the information about what's happening. And we got some stuff already in 2025 that is super interesting. And we're going to kick things off here with the Fox Sports lawsuit that's going on. Yes. And make sure that you do subscribe to the Parker's Couch channel. The podcast will be returning. So don't worry, that will also be featured on the YouTube page. So you'll be able to do that. So on the YouTube page, you'll be able to catch lawsuit coverage, our podcast, and also some reviews that will be going on. But make sure you stay tuned to that. Check out Instagram as well. My Instagram at cdparker03, as I will be posting videos there as well. And look at TikTok as well, the Parker's Couch on TikTok. You'll be able to see all the links to the information here on the screen for you to do your thing. Like, share, subscribe, follow, do all the good things. Tell the world about it. Because 2025, we are here. We are here to stay and keep this train rolling. But let's kick things off here with this Fox Sports lawsuit that has been, it's been all the drama that you want. Like, it's just such a soap opera going on. And it just takes me back to my time at ESPN. And I have some connection with some of these folks, like in working capacities, and knowing that and just kind of being in the environment of the sports world. And let me just say, it's not surprising at all if any of this is true. It wouldn't be surprising because the culture there, it is such a, at least whenever I was there, I was at ESPN from 2004 through 2013, and it was just such a boys locker room culture. And it's the typical guys that kind of do this stuff. And some of my travels on the road with covering things, yeah, it was shenanigans and stuff going on. There were a lot of shenanigans and gossip that you heard. It is like gossip corner around there in the sports networks too. So the girls be chirping. They don't think they the girls, but they the girls. Let me tell you, guys gossip more than women do. More, what we like to do, or what I like to do with these court cases, is really share with you the court documents. I won't read every single page. This particular court case is about 42 pages, but we will go through a bulk of it because I want to do the work, so you don't have to. All right. Noushin Faraji is the individual who is filing this complaint. She is the plaintiff in this situation, and she is suing. This lawsuit is against the Fox Corporation, Fox Sports Holdings, Charlie Dixon, Skip Bayless, and Joy Taylor. And then there are some unidentified people who may become identified later as well. Just some of the complaints, just so you know, it's a failure to pay minimum wages, failure to pay overtime wages, failure to reimburse Business Express, failure to pay all wages upon separation, failure to furnish accurate itemized wage statements, unfair, lawful, or fraudulent business practices, That's all the class action complaints. Now, the individual complaints that she's making is of the nature of sexual battery, hostile work environment, hostile dealing to sex and gender, hostile work environment dealing to race and national origin, hostile work environment due to a disability, failure to prevent harassment, negligent supervision, hiring and retention, retaliation, and wrongful termination. So Ms. Faraji brings forth this action because for over a decade at Fox, she was forced to endure a misogynistic, racist, and ableist workplace where executives and talent were allowed to physically and verbally abuse workers with impunity. When Ms. Faraji and others came forward to report the wrongdoing, instead of addressing their concerns, Fox retaliated against them while the perpetrators and those who protected them were inexplicitly promoted. Mm, 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 mm. This case thus represents yet another in a long line of cases chronicling the toxic culture at Fox, marked by the bad faith promises and repeated failures to address a poisonous and entrenched patriarchy. Ms. Faraji also brings forth an action on behalf of herself and Fox current and former non-exempt hourly employees employed in California, beginning 4 years prior to the filing of this complaint and ending on a date as determined by the court. Specifically, during the class period, Fox had a consistent policy and or practice of failing to pay employees all minimum wages, failing to pay employees all overtime wages, failing to reimburse employees for business expenses, failing to pay all wages upon separation, and knowingly and intentionally failing to furnish accurate itemized wage statements. As a result of the above labor code violations, Fox committed unfair, unlawful, and fraudulent business practices in violation of California's unfair competition law. So, there we have a good summary of what is going on here in this case. And y'all, it is juicy. We are going to get into these details. Do note that you will get the complete coverage here on the YouTube channel. I also post a version for TikTok and also post a version for Instagram/Facebook. But the entirety of everything is here on YouTube. And I like to share what's going on in the cases, the actual complaints, and then share my opinions, because I have thoughts. We all have thoughts, and I love for you to share your thoughts in the comments as well as we work along this court case. So let's introduce the parties that's involved. We already talked about Miss Faraji. We know Fox Corporation, Fox Sports. We ain't got to go into all of that, but let's meet the players. So the defendant, Charlie Dixon, and this is Charlie Dixon. If you see my finger pointing right there at his face, he is the executive vice president of content for FS1, Fox's flagship multi-sport national network, overseeing all content and production of network. Mr. Dixon was in July 2016, the very first significant hiring of former Fox president Jamie Horowitz, who was terminated from Fox due to reports of sexual harassment. At all relevant times, Mr. Dixon was an agent of Fox and an authority to make decisions impacting Ms. Faraji's employment. Upon information and belief, Mr. Dixon is a resident of the state of California. Now, those people mentioned, Jamie Horowitz, I used to, he was my coordinating producer and actually my assigned coordinating producer, who was supposed to be like, it kind of serve as like a mentor and stuff for you, and supposed to be the people helping you elevate and move along within the company, even though I was never part of the boys club, so I didn't fit in, for whatever reason. And I have my thoughts around that. But I worked with him under Sports Nation. Charlie Dixon also was at ESPN. He was there for about a year, towards the end of my time and stuff there. And he came in. So this made sense. They were all boys. They don't really, I always got the vibes like you get the vibes around certain people where this stuff doesn't surprise you. And you kind of have your assumptions of how they roll, but nothing was ever confirmed, or I didn't really care to detail. I had my own life to live, right? I ain't worried about these people. But they didn't really irk me as much as the name of Kevin Wilds. Now that's one face every time I see him on FS1. I have, gotten over a lot of things in my experiences and dealt with stuff personally. But sometimes some people still trigger you if you see their face or something and see something. So anytime I see that face pop up, and he was a producer and stuff then, and it's no wonder he's on the camera with Charlie Dixon being, content executive vice president and stuff, and they all being boys, easily get on camera. But that's one. Uh, okay, we won't even go into that. You can ask questions about that later. But yes, so that's Mr. Charlie Dixon, and he's heavily involved in this, as you will see. Find out. Defendant Skip Bayless. So you see this guy right here, Skip, in the center of the screen. Yeah, that's Skip Bayless, the guy everyone loves to hate, but he's a sports columnist, commentator, television personality who worked at Fox on his show Skip and Shannon, Undisputed, from 2016 to August 2024. In March 2021, Mr. Bayless signed a 4-year, $32 million contract with Fox. At all relevant times, Mr. Bayless was an agent of Fox and an authority to make decisions impacting Ms. Faraji's employment. Upon information and belief, Mr. Bayless is a resident of the state of California. Skip, I didn't work with him much with first taking stuff then, but sometimes I had that assignment or had to do something. But I want to say about Skip, he was always very nice to me in the halls. Like, we would speak and stuff in the halls and passing and different things. And I really never heard anything bad about him, and everybody kind of really enjoyed Skip. So I would say I was a little surprised with the things I found out about Skip here on the within this lawsuit. Now, defendant Joy Taylor. That's wait, where am I pointing? Pointing here. There we go. Gotta get the finger right. This is Joy Taylor. Now, personally, I did have a little bias with Joy because I always enjoyed Joy. I really did enjoy Joy Taylor. So I was shocked to hear about a lot of the things about her in this lawsuit. But defendant Joy Taylor is a media personality and television host for Fox. She co-hosts the show Speak on FS1. At all relevant times, Ms. Taylor was an agent of Fox and had authority to make the decisions impacting Ms. Faraji's employment. Upon information and belief, Ms. Taylor is a resident of the state of California. So it sets us up first with the factual background in this case. And Ms. Faraji, it says, is hired to work at Fox in 2003. And she began to work at Jose Eber Hair Salon, a sophisticated salon providing cutting-edge styling and coloring techniques and treatments to high-profile clients. Around 2010, Ms. Faraji was introduced by a co-worker at the salon to Gail Berman, the former president of entertainment for Fox Broadcasting Company, and Dana Walden, the former CEO of Fox Television Group. Shortly thereafter, Ms. Faraji began accompanying the co-worker to do Ms. Walden and Ms. Berman's hair at their homes and on the premises of Fox. Over time, as Ms. Faraji's co-worker became busy with other clients, he sent Ms. Faraji on her own to do their hair. In approximately 2012, a makeup stylist who would do Ms. Walden and or Ms. Berman's makeup when Ms. Faraji worked on their hair recommended Ms. Faraji for a position at Fox. Fox then hired Ms. Faraji as a part-time employee. When hired, Ms. Faraji was asked to bring her own tools for work. She would later discover that all co-workers received a kit fee for bringing their own tools. However, she herself would not receive a kit fee until 2019. So they say from 2012 up until 2019, she did not, that 7 years, she didn't receive this extra bit of money she was supposed to. So in addition, while Ms. Faraji was a hairstylist, her supervisor, Gina Peretti, who we'll hear more about Ms. Peretti in this lawsuit, also required that she do the job duties of a barber. She complained to her union that they told her while cutting hair was not in her contract, Ms. Peretti was known to be difficult, and it was best to just comply with her requests. Accordingly, throughout her tenure. So she both styled and cut hair. So in 2016, Fox hired Ms. Faraji as a full-time hairstylist. So she starts part-time in 2012. She becomes full-time in 2016. She doesn't start receiving the payment of bringing her own material until 2019. That's 7 years. Now, here we go. The first title, Mr. Dixon gives Miss Taylor undisputed as a reward for having sex with him. So already my mind was,
Ooh, the ghetto, the ghetto, the ghetto.
Joy Taylor sleeping for a role on Undisputed. Where are we going with here? And why is this being brought out in the lawsuit? And what? So I already had a lot of questions going in. So let's go into it. So in approximately March 2016, Miss Faraji met Miss Taylor, an aspiring sports personality that had recently moved from Miami to Los Angeles for the opportunity of airtime at Fox. At the time, Miss Taylor did not have a regular position, but would fill in on day-to-day basis when talent was sick or otherwise missed time. Miss Taylor told Miss Faraji that she was recently wed, but her husband remained in Miami and that she was lonely in Los Angeles. Miss Taylor then befriended Miss Faraji. In approximately May 2016, so a couple of months later, Miss Taylor asked Miss Faraji to meet for a drink in Santa Monica. When Miss Faraji arrived, she found Miss Taylor with an older man, Fox Sports Executive Vice President of Content, Mr. Dixon. As Executive Vice President, Mr. Dixon is responsible for overseeing all content and production on FS1. Miss Faraji, however, did not know Mr. Dixon. When Mr. Dixon went to buy them another round of spicy margaritas, all right, Miss Faraji asked who he was. Miss Taylor responded, "Oh, that's just a friend." So following that night, whenever Miss Faraji would meet with Miss Taylor for drinks or food, Mr. Dixon would arrive either with Miss Taylor or show up later in the night and leave with Miss Taylor. He would always buy rounds of drinks and or food. From their body language, Miss Faraji suspected that the pair were sleeping with each other. And although this concerned Miss Faraji, as she knew Miss Taylor was recently married, Miss Faraji kept her opinions to herself. Okay. In approximately June 2016, while at work, Miss Faraji noticed Mr. Dixon in the elevator. Surprised by the coincidence, Miss Faraji found Miss Taylor and told her excitedly, "The guy who's always buys us drinks was in the elevator." Miss Taylor quickly silenced Miss Faraji, explaining who he was. Miss Faraji became alarmed and warned Miss Taylor that such a relationship was unsafe. Miss Taylor told her not to worry about it. Miss Faraji continued to be friends with Miss Taylor, but tried to distance herself as she considered the situation dangerous as well as morally wrong, as Miss Taylor and Mr. Dixon were both married. In approximately July 2016, word spread among Fox employees about a new show that was going to be a big deal, as it would star Mr. Bayless and Shannon Sharp. It was known as Fox. It was known that Fox was looking for a woman with significant TV experience to also star. Therefore, it came as a surprise when Fox announced that Miss Taylor, who was a bartender and a radio host in Miami with very little TV experience, would be the moderator of the new show. Mr. Bayless later disclosed to Miss Faraji that he did not want Miss Taylor on the show, but Mr. Dixon was adamant that Miss Taylor should star. At first, Mr. Dixon arranged the dinner between Mr. Bayless and Miss Taylor, where she arrived in provocative clothing and acted in a provocative manner. When that did not change Mr. Bayless' opinion of Miss Taylor, Mr. Dixon asked him to approve of her as a favor to him. Reluctantly, Mr. Bayless agreed to do so as a favor to his friend. Around August 2016, y'all, this is so quick. Remember, she just got there in March 2016. Now, this is August of 2016. Miss Faraji attended a dinner with Miss Taylor and her husband, and Mr. Dixon and his wife. During the dinner, Miss Taylor's husband became suspicious that Miss Taylor and Mr. Dixon were having a sexual relationship. Soon after the dinner, Miss Taylor's husband found evidence of the inappropriate relationship and divorced Miss Taylor. In approximately September 2016, Undisputed started. Miss Taylor requested Miss Faraji to do her hair in approximately November 2016. After not allowing anyone to touch his hair, Mr. Bayless also requested Miss Faraji to do his hair. So that covers the first little piece. Um, a couple of nuggets there, like, all right, I can see it being possible because I always wondered, like, girl, why you get divorced so fast? She was like barely married a year. So that was always like a question that I had. Also, I just don't. This they try to paint Miss Faraji, and wish she could be just totally innocent, naive person in all these situations. But oh my gosh, this whole moral high ground thing of, oh my god, like I can't be friend. Like I don't want to be friends with her. I don't know. This is reluctant. Like what she's doing is so morally wrong. I don't, this is just me. It's some things I know people don't roll with, and I understand that you have your positions, but I always like what people do don't affect me. That's them. Like I don't know why I'm not gonna invest myself into those situations. I'm not even gonna overstep and say anything. Like, don't be doing it. It's not like y'all were like girlfriends like that. I don't know. Y'all just met each other. So that I just felt like that was a little embellishment within this lawsuit to shed more light on her. Not saying that it's not accurate what was going on, but I just felt like it was a little unnecessary language in there from my perspective rather than just telling the story of the facts. But still, I'm trying to figure out at this point, I'm wondering the relevancy of why we're talking about this. Because how does this impact Miss Faraji? So the next headline, Mr. Dixon gropes Miss Faraji after putting her on Undisputed. So on January 14th, 2017, now we're into the new year, Miss Taylor had her birthday party at Pearl's Rooftop in West Hollywood. Miss Faraji and other Fox employees who were invited attended as it was part of their job duties to appease talent. And a birthday party is an important event. It's like, girl, maybe you just went because you are her friend. I don't know. I'm okay. But anyway, once again, the language used. As usual, Mr. Dixon was heavily drinking, buying drinks for everyone on a Fox credit card, and blustering that everything purchased was on Fox dime. As Miss Faraji was standing near the bar, facing the crowd, Mr. Dixon approached her. He asked the bartender for a drink and then placed his arm on Miss Faraji's lower back. He asked how she was doing, if she was having fun, and if she wanted a tequila shot. Miss Faraji felt very uncomfortable by his unsolicited touching and responded, "No, thank you." Mr. Dixon then moved his hand lower and started rubbing her body and grabbing her buttocks. Miss Faraji was mortified, but quickly thought to fake an incoming call to escape from the situation. Miss Faraji didn't know who to turn to, but as she knew Miss Taylor was sleeping with Mr. Dixon, she turned to her. Surprisingly, Miss Taylor responded, "Get over it," and explained that she herself had her job because of Mr. Dixon and that Miss Faraji only had her job because Miss Taylor requested her. She warned that Mr. Dixon could take both away. Miss Faraji was terrified and then turned to her co-worker Anonymous to discuss the situation. Anonymous responded that Mr. Dixon was disgusting, that the entire situation was sick, but that it wasn't shocking given Fox culture, and that Miss Faraji should remain quiet if she wanted to keep her job. As a single mother who needed the job to support her son, Miss Faraji had no choice but to remain silent. Now, no choice? No, she had a choice. I don't like that language. But anyway, 7 years later in 2023, Miss Parati told Miss Faraji that she did not like her or anything about Undisputed. Miss Parati expanded that she had already scheduled someone for hair on Undisputed when Mr. Dixon called her and told her that she must put Miss Faraji on Undisputed full time. Miss Peretti told Miss Faraji, "I didn't like that. That's not how things should be done. Miss Faraji was stunned and devastated as she prides herself on her work and earning her accolades. Later that day, while thinking about her career, she was angry that Miss Peretti succumbed to Mr. Dixon's request, as it gave Mr. Dixon the feeling that he could grope her for giving her a job. So there's a lot in here. There's a choice. There's always a choice. This is, I agree, like the culture, this is all sick and everything. And it's not an easy choice. It's not an easy choice to stand up to being sexually harassed. And I have no idea. I would never put myself in a woman's shoes to go through that and what that feels like. And men too. I know men who have been sexually assaulted in power situations as well. So being that that hasn't happened to me, I would not dare put myself in that situation. But I've been in situations, I would say, where I felt powerless and I succumb to that. Like, you just get used to a routine and you can get in this feeling like your job is everything. And if you lose this job, it's going to be the end of your life. But it's just not true. That's not true. There's always a choice. So let this just be a wake up call for people. No matter how difficult the situation and how difficult that choice is, to make that change. Because when I, from personal experience, when I made that change at ESPN, um and that would probably come up with some things later in the story too that I kind of relate to. But just making that change with that first thing in your life and being somewhere for almost 10 years, and it's difficult to make that choice to say I quit or to put in a notice, because and without anything else lined up and being uncertain of your future. At the time I was married with the kid, and the main income. So that was not an easy situation by any means. I was separated at that point, actually going through separation and all that stuff. Um, at that point, whenever it happened, but it was still, I was still taking care of my family. So that's those situations are not easy. But I just say that to say that people, you always have a choice in these situations. So don't feel compelled to keep up with something. And that's not, I'm not victim blaming or anything in that way. So please don't take it that way. It's just like a message. It just made me think of that. All right. So Mr. Dixon, the next headline, Mr. Dixon gets rid of a female talent member for refusing to have sex with him. Several years into Miss Faraji's tenure at Fox, a female talent member, Anonymous, hired Miss Faraji to do her hair at her house for an award show. Anonymous asked that Miss Faraji meet her for lunch first. There, Anonymous told Miss Faraji that she would no longer be with Fox, as Mr. Dixon told her that she would need to have sex with him if she wanted to renew her contract, but she had refused. Anonymous further conveyed that Mr. Dixon was doing this to other women talent, and she warned Mr. Taylor to be careful. She warned Miss Taylor to be careful. And a talk show host had recently reported Mr. Dixon. When I said you have a choice, allegedly this woman made a choice and said, "No, I'm not doing that. This job is not worth it." So following the lunch, Miss Faraji called Miss Taylor to convey what Anonymous had stated, which I'm confused right here already. And I'm going to say, why would I thought her and Miss Taylor, she don't want to be friends with her, but now she's carrying the bones. All right, carry those bones. But following the lunch, Miss Faraji called Miss Taylor to convey what Anonymous has stated. Miss Taylor responded that no one gives a fuck about Anonymous or her talk show host, who had reported Mr. Dixon. Miss Faraji later explained that Miss Taylor's remark appeared accurate, as no actions were taken to address the concerns raised. If it was not already apparent, it became even more clear that Fox enabled high-ranking individuals to abuse their authority, exerting undue control over female talent and employees. Fear permeated the workplace as stories of mistreatment circulated. As one example, Mr. Dixon deliberately assigned a female talent member who had been harassed and reported it to a show set up to fail. When the show inevitably failed due to his sabotage, he used this failure as a justification to terminate her employment. In another instance, a coworker who frequently cried in the hallway due to relentless sexual harassment was fired just 1 week after reporting it. These repeated incidents reinforce an atmosphere where atmosphere where speaking up seemed futile and dangerous. Whew, that's that's a picture of an environment right there. Like,
Well, just as I thought, trash.
mm-mm, no, thank you. No, 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 ma'am. All right, let's get on. Mr. Bayless begins to give Miss Faraji lingering hugs and kisses on the cheek while putting his body against hers and pressing against her breasts. After reporting by the talk show, After the reporting by the talk show host fell on deaf ears, Mr. Bayless began requesting that Miss Faraji give him a haircut once a week in the makeup room. Miss Faraji did as she was told, as Miss Parati required Miss Faraji to give haircuts to talent. Initially, during the haircuts, Mr. Bayless would discuss his life, his work at Fox, and other innocuous matters. However, soon after the weekly haircut started, Mr. Bayless began finding excuses to touch Miss Faraji. He would give her lingering hugs after each haircut, putting his body against her own, pressing against her breasts. He then began to kiss her on her cheeks. Miss Faraji was uncomfortable by the physical contact and would make excuses to leave right after the haircuts. Example, I need to pick up my son from school. In approximately 2017, while in approximately the summer of 2017, while Miss Faraji was giving Mr. Bayless a haircut, he told her that she was voluptuous. As English is her second language and she was not familiar with the word, Miss Faraji asked what it meant. Mr. Bayless seemed amused and told her to figure it out. Miss Faraji later asked a coworker what the word meant and was mortified. Mr. Bayless then started being more aggressive and direct in his advances. Miss Faraji continuously declined, stating that she did not date at work as she is a single mom and needed her job. Miss Faraji was terrified and then turned to her coworker to discuss the situation. The two decided that because Mr. Bayless was a powerful man and Fox protected powerful men, example, Mr. Dixon's actions were openly known but ignored, it would only be to her detriment to report the issue. The two decided that Miss Faraji needed to be kind towards Mr. Bayless or risk her job. As a single mother who relied on her job to support her son, Miss Faraji felt that she had no choice. Miss Faraji has her hours cut after going on medical leave. In approximately November 2017, Miss Faraji hurt her back at work, couldn't move for nearly 40 days, and received workers' compensation. In approximately December 2017, when Ms. Faraji returned from her leave, she was not provided her full time schedule and learned from a coworker that Ms. Parati had promised her shifts to someone else. Ms. Faraji called her union for help. Her union informed her that Ms. Parati's actions would be illegal under the law. Ms. Faraji then called Human Resources, who confirmed that she was entitled to her pre leave schedule. On January 5th, 2018, Ms. Parati called Ms. Faraji into her office. When Ms. Faraji arrived, an individual from Human Resources was present, and Ms. Parati was falsely explaining that Ms. Faraji did not want her full-time schedule. Ms. Faraji grew upset, explained that she did want her full-time schedule, and further explained that Ms. Parati had been treating her poorly for years. Ms. Faraji then had multiple meetings with HR, where she explained that Ms. Peretti yelled at her and made fun of her and bullied her. Example, Ms. Peretti told Ms. Faraji that she did not like her and could fire her at any time. From Ms. Faraji's perspective, there was no resolution after these conversations, as she was never informed of any sort of conclusion or action taken on Fox's part. This is actually very believable. I know I won't mention the name, but if they're listening, they know who I'm talking about, who deals with a very toxic situation with their boss and has, reported things to HR and made complaints in these reports, but it stuff sometimes stuff goes nowhere. We know how this stuff goes. It's not beyond the realm of imagination. Miss Faraji remains on Undisputed and is asked to also join the herd. In approximately the summer of 2018, Miss Taylor was moved from Undisputed to the herd with Colin Cowherd. Miss Taylor again requested Miss Faraji to do her hair. Colin Cowherd um, also requested Miss Faraji to do his hair. Thus, every day, Miss Faraji would do Mr. Bayless' hair for Undisputed, and then would do Miss Taylor and Mr. Cowherd's hair for the herd. Throughout her tenure at Fox, Mr. Cowherd was professional and respectful to Miss Faraji and her coworkers. Around this time, after learning of Miss Taylor and Mr. Dixon's sexual relationship, Miss Taylor's then fiance broke off the engagement and threatened to go public with all that he knew. On information and belief, Mr. Dixon paid for the wedding deposits in an informal exchange for her fiance's silence. Wow. Um, so I saw Jason Whitlock talking, and he was talking about his theories and stuff at Fox. And I'm no Jason Whitlock fan. I do agree with some of the things he said. The Colin part, to me, it's not. I see where it would say like it seems like out of nowhere or something, but she was talking about a time on the herd, and Joy was on the herd, and she mentions Colin, and she's talking about all these powerful men. So I think they just mentioned that because there are people who are question, oh, well, what did Colin do? He's a powerful man, and you did it. Did he try anything? But I think she just made that clear, which working with Colin with Sports Nation, that was Colin was he's a professional. So yeah, he always treated everybody with respect from my experiences and stuff, and was always like a great person to work with. So that doesn't surprise me. But this tea right here, um, of whoo, the fiance. And I think is this when she was engaged to? I think my brother told me it was Mr. Watson, Earl Watson at the time. If he's the one they're talking about here, I'm not really sure her dating history there. I would have to look that up. But learning of it, and then Mr. Dixon paying for the wedding deposits to keep him quiet, maybe that's why the wedding didn't happen. I, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, T. And how does she know that? Because I'm like, what level of friends were y'all? Were y'all friends or not? Did you try to distance yourself or not from Joy? Because this seems like very specific information to know. Did this get told to you? Yeah, I don't know. Questions. All right, Mr. Diaz racially and sexually harasses Miss Faraji. On May 10th, 2019, Bobby Diaz, the individual who puts the microphone on the talent, mocked Miss Faraji for her pronunciation of English words and sexualized the way she was eating fruit. Miss Faraji did not respond. She just kept her eyes glued on the monitor playing Undisputed. Miss Peretti was present and did not do anything. On information and belief, Mr. Diaz openly gropes, harasses, and is inappropriate with women at Fox. On information and belief, Mr. Diaz has not been fired, reportedly due to his role in supplying cocaine to numerous Fox employees and talent, even after an incident where he removed his pants on live camera.
Jesus, take the wheel and drive fast.
What the hell is going on, y'all? On information and belief in December 2024, after Ms. Faraji sent notice of this impending lawsuit to Fox, Mr. Diaz made a mockery of his discussions with human resources regarding his interactions with Ms. Faraji. He told various employees that Ms. Faraji was stupid, defiantly stated that despite being told not to speak about his discussions with human resources, he didn't care, saying, "Who gives a shit?" He further boasted that he would never be fired. She should have cussed this ass out. I mean, some people deserve that same energy right back. That's the thing. Mm-mm. I don't care, man, woman, anything at any position. Someone, especially on the workplace, let somebody step. That's what happened. You're not gonna step to me in some inappropriate way and not get a response. And I think everybody should adapt that attitude. I may be super nice and all these things, and people understand that, but that became one of my sticking points at ESPN. Yes, because I was not gonna take no BS. And when people yelled at me, I didn't care if it was talent. I didn't care if it was a producer. I definitely shouted back.
I said what I said.
Okay, well, what you said was some bull.
But
That's
you don't
what it
like
is.
it. You don't like it.
I sure damn don't like it.
That's all I'm gonna say, girl. You open that mouth, absolutely, because this guy seems like a little shit. Absolutely, Mr. Diaz. Anyway, Miss Taylor again uses her sexuality to get on the show. Dang, Joy, she is coming for you, girl. In approximately February 2020, Miss Taylor asked Miss Faraji to meet her for lunch in Beverly Hills. When Miss Faraji arrived, she found Miss Taylor with a man, Emmanuel Acho. I think, is it Acho or Acho? I think it is Acho, right? Miss Faraji did not know Mr. Acho, but could tell that the two were romantically involved. How could you tell? Were they hugged up? They kissed? I don't know. A few months after meeting Mr. Acho at lunch, Miss Faraji noticed him in the hallway while at work. Miss Faraji later asked Miss Taylor if Mr. Acho also worked at Fox. Miss Taylor confirmed and explained that she never seen him. Uh, but she confirmed and explained that she wanted Mr. Acho to eventually recommend her on the show Speak for Yourself. Miss Faraji became alarmed and warned Miss Taylor that she would probably not sleep with Mr. Dixon and that she should probably not sleep with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Acho at the same time, as Mr. Dixon is a very powerful man that may become very angry. Miss Taylor told her not to worry about it. She explained that she was also now powerful, and once Mr. Dixon was no longer useful to her, she would follow through on her plan to tell the company that he forced himself on her. She would not allow herself to be forced out by Mr. Dixon like other women talent. In approximately September 2022, Miss Taylor started to work on Speak. Miss Taylor requested Miss Faraji to do her hair. I don't know. I don't know. Like, what's the proof here that they were having sex or they were romantically involved? And this conversation seems like really over the top. Like, Joy seems like a smart woman from what I gather. Like, you would say that. It's just hard for my mind to believe that this conversation really truly took place this way. It just is. If it did, that's interesting to use sets in that way, but then saying like you're not powerful. And by the way, I'm gonna say like he assaulted me. You had not forced me out, and I'm gonna get interesting. All right. Miss Faraji is targeted because of her ethnicity. In approximately 2020, Jane Doe, an employee at Fox, began demonstrating erratic behavior. One night at an informal dinner at Maestro's steakhouse, she grew irrationally enraged with Miss Faraji and screamed, "Fuck you, you Persian bitch." The dinner ended after Miss M broke a glass and threatened to harm herself. Ooh, this lady sounds. This is Jane Doe, who they call Miss M. Sounds like she has some things going on. Following the dinner, Miss Faraji's co-worker, who is black, reported the incident. I don't know why that's relevant, but reported the incident to Human Resources, explaining that she would not be okay with someone calling her a black bitch. Okay, that's I guess why they pointed it out. Anonymous also had Miss Faraji report the incident to Miss Peretti. Despite these reports supposedly being anonymous, Miss M learned of the reports and became increasingly unstable towards Miss Faraji. Every single morning, Miss M would scream and throw things at Miss Faraji. Approximately 6 months later, Ms. Faraji told HR that she believed her life was in danger. HR responded that Ms. Faraji should just leave the workplace when Ms. M was having an episode. After approximately a year and a half, Ms. M was fired. Ms. M's ex boyfriend, a producer at Fox, shared that HR gave Ms. M a large amount of money in severance. Ms. Faraji wondered why Fox rewarded her bully with money. HR eventually apologized to Ms. Faraji, explaining they did not have experience with mental health issues. HR offered Ms. Faraji free therapy. Ms. Faraji declined the free therapy, but began to see an independent therapist once a week to discuss her life at Fox. Ms. Faraji continues to see this therapist today. That's a lot. So this lady is going through sexual harassment. She's been demeaned by her boss. She's has people, co-workers threatening her and all this stuff. It's a lot going on allegedly here. All right. So Miss Faraji believes she has cancer and conveys this to Mr. Bayless in an attempt to stop his advances, only to have him offer 1.5 million to have sex. Now, this is the part that has everybody talking of the lawsuit. So we're finally here. I was wondering when this 1.5 million was coming up, y'all. I forgot how far down within it was. But over the years, Mr. Bayless continued to make advances on Miss Faraji, lingering hugs, kisses, and on the cheek, and inappropriate comments that he could change her life if she acquiesced to having sex. Miss Faraji would always make excuses regarding her son, politely change the subject, or make a joke, anything to keep Mr. Bayless appeased and her job safe. In July 2021, Ms. Faraji developed issues with her left ovary and was advised it could be cancer. With a fourth biopsy scheduled, she explained her situation to Mr. Bayless, hoping that he would take pity on her and cease his advances. Instead, Mr. Bayless told her that he wanted to be with her. Ms. Faraji panicked and began rambling that there were cameras everywhere and that she has a child and that she does not want him. Mr. Bayless then grabbed her hands, began kissing them, and offered her 1.5 million to have sex with him. Miss Faraji made an excuse to leave. Approximately 1 week later, Mr. Bayless made another advance at Miss Faraji. Miss Faraji responded, "Skip, stop. You have a wife." Mr. Bayless responded, "Aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 to 4 wives?" Skip. Miss Faraji responded that her father was dead. And when Mr. Bayless looked taken aback, she made an excuse to leave. 1 point, child, if this is true, would y'all do it? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. 1.5 mil on the table. Would you make that risk? Would you take that? Would you take that jump and do that? This is crazy though. Like she done all this harassment, groping, and all this stuff, and now she's been offered money for sex. Like, how does this much stuff happen to one person at a job? That's I don't mean to laugh, but that's a lot of stuff to happen to one person at a workplace. All right, Miss Faraji's job is threatened because she does not sleep with Mr. Bayless. On April 12, 2022, Mr. Bayless texted Miss Faraji, "I'm good today." The text meant that he would not be coming in for hair and makeup. On April 13th, 2022, Mr. Bayless texted Miss Faraji, "Not comfortable coming down there. Just do what you need to do. It's okay." Miss Faraji asked him what's wrong. He replied, "Same stuff, worse." Miss Faraji, concerned about her own job, walked to Mr. Bayless' fitting room to see if everything was okay. Mr. Bayless answered the door, and before Miss Faraji could speak, he began to angrily accuse Miss Faraji of fucking Mr. Sharp. Y'all, I I can't. I can't. Are we 14 years old? What is happening? If this is what's going on right now, if this stuff is true, I just can't. Miss Faraji tried to explain that she did not have any feelings towards Mr. Sharp and had never slept with him or any other talent member or employee at Fox. But before she could speak, Mr. Bayless demanded she come to his car after the show. Miss Faraji responded that she could not come sit in his car as it was inappropriate. Mr. Bayless grew irate, and then left. On April 14, 2022, Mr. Bayless texted Miss Faraji, "If you're distracted tomorrow, I'll wait till Monday. But I can't keep doing this." Miss Faraji told him that she was very confused. Mr. Bayless responded, "Trust me, I'm far more confused." Miss Faraji then explained over text that she is not sleeping with Mr. Sharp. Mr. Bayless did not respond. On April 15th, 2022, Mr. Bayless texted Miss Faraji, "Do you still want to do the haircut or just move on?" Miss Faraji responded that she doesn't want to move on from her job and that she will continue doing his hair. Why, girl? Why? This man offer you $1.5 million for sets, continually touches you, and does all this stuff, and you want to continue to do his hair. This is the part that's confusing me, y'all. There is a choice here in this situation. Not gonna blame, and because if all this stuff is going on, this is wrong, and she is right to sue. But why are you trying to keep this? I'm just in confusion. I'm so in confusion. On April 16th, 2022, Mr. Bayless called Miss Faraji. Miss Faraji did not answer the call because she was scared. She then called him back 10 minutes later. On the call, Mr. Bayless again angrily accused Mr. Faraji of fucking Mr. Sharp and said that he could tell from her body language that she was fucking him. My God, my God. Miss Faraji tried to explain that she was kind to all talent, and that included laughing and engaging in conversation. Miss Faraji then asked if he was yelling at her because she refused to go to his car. Mr. Bayless answered that she shouldn't talk to him like that. Miss Faraji replied that she could respond however she wanted. Mr. Bayless then angrily stated that he heard her talk to Mr. Sharp about her vagina. Okay. Miss Faraji knew this to be untrue and was embarrassed and angry. Miss Faraji responded that even if she had been dating Mr. Sharp, which she wasn't, it shouldn't matter at all because she only had a professional relationship with Mr. Bayless. On April 17th, 2022, Miss Faraji arrived in the makeup room approximately 12 feet by 30 feet, containing 3 makeup and hair sections, turned on the recording device, put it on the table, and waited for Mr. Bayless to arrive. In the meantime, 2 of Miss Faraji's co-workers who were privy to Mr. Bayless' actions went into other talent members' rooms adjacent to the makeup room to listen into the conversation. Mr. Bayless then arrived in the makeup room for Miss Faraji to cut his hair in accordance to his regular schedule. Mr. Bayless knew that the makeup room was always recorded and clearly states the room is bugged. During their conversation, Mr. Bayless stated that he would hate for her to lose her job, but she can't be doing a big thing with my arch rival. She responded by reiterating that being polite to Mr. Sharp is part of her job. Mr. Bayless responded, "Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on you." Mr. Bayless then warned that he doesn't want her to lose her job over this. Miss Faraji responded that she wasn't going to lose her job because she is a great hairdresser. Mr. Bayless responded, "I have love for you. I have for 6 years, and you hurt me, and you are ruining this." Miss Faraji again responded that she must be polite to all talent. Mr. Bayless then applied that if he stopped requesting her, it would affect her job. Miss Faraji responded that she is scheduled to work every morning at 5:45 a.m. and if he would like to get his hair done, he is welcome to sit in the chair. Mr. Bayless continued to threaten her job. Miss Faraji knew that he was trying to pressure her into having sex with him, but she kept repeating that she was a professional that had to be kind to all talent. On April 21st, 2022, Mr. Bayless asked if Miss Faraji would come to his home to color his hair, a side job that Miss Faraji previously would partake in with Mr. Bayless' wife when Mr. Bayless's wife was home. On this occasion, with her therapist's help, she conveyed that she would no longer be going to his home. The following week, Mr. Bayless arrived in the makeup room as if their conversation never happened. But Miss Faraji remained on edge. Miss Faraji had worsening nightmares regarding the incidents that took place with Mr. Bayless. Miss Faraji's therapist started using eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing to talk through her interactions with Mr. Bayless. Lord, this is like a Tyler Perry script. This stuff right here, it is so. What? What is going on? Like, can you see this? What is Skip? 60s, 70s? So, can you see this old ass man having this conversation like this? Being that whatever, like hung up over Shannon Sharp, and if he's having sex with this girl and being in this girl, even though you have is he married or is Ernestine his girlfriend? I forget. I think it's just girlfriend, right? But it's like a wife, like Ernestine, that he's been with forever. That you have somebody, but you're crushing on with this person for 6 years and asking for 1.5 million for sets. Like, uh, it's just a lot. It's a whole lot, and I just can't. It is definitely giving Tyler Perry. Some of the stuff we get to, we gonna skim through. She's targeted for her ethnicity and disability again. They go through this thing, talk about Joy was mocking her English, explaining that she couldn't understand her accent. They're talking about her humming all the time, and that is something that she did for her PTSD, but it was getting on her nerves, and saying that she needs a black hairstylist, that she don't know how to do her hair. Let's share this instance. On June 21st, 2023, Ms. Peretti called Ms. Faraji into her office. Ms. Peretti explained that while Ms. Faraji should still go in every morning to set up for hair, Ms. Taylor no longer needed her as a hairstylist. Ms. Peretti explained that Ms. Faraji was to work from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then go home. When Ms. Faraji asked about touch-ups, Ms. Peretti stated that she had spoken to all talent on the show and no one needed touch-ups. Ms. Faraji then asked if she did something wrong. Ms. Peretti responded, "You remind me of my dog. And when I take my dog out, he barks at bigger dogs. That's like you." Ms. Faraji left the room and cried. To call someone a dog is one of the most offensive insults in the Persian culture. Girl, you do not leave the room and cry. That's that's what I'm talking about. Mm-mm. That stuff, I can't stand that type of bullying and stuff from people. And I yeah, all this is allegedly, but I could see stuff like that happening. I could definitely see stuff like that happening. Let's share this part where Miss Faraji participates in an internal investigation only to be singled out, taken off speak, and accused of having sex with Mr. Bayless. So in mid-July 2023, Anna Drucker, Fox Sports Vice President of Employee Relations, asked Miss Faraji for a meeting. At the meeting, Miss Drucker asked if Miss Taylor was having a sexual relationship with Mr. Acho. Miss Faraji admitted that the two were in a sexual relationship. Miss Faraji, and I still don't understand how it never explains that she was told this or she just suspected it. I don't know. But Miss Faraji shared this information because she didn't think it was a big deal. Miss Taylor and Mr. Acho had similar amounts of power at this time. And because she didn't think Miss Taylor or Mr. Acho would physically harm her for providing this information, Mr. Acho had always been respectful to Miss Faraji and never threatened to hurt her. But someone else is calling you in asking about those two if they having sex. I would have been like, that's none of my business. I don't know. That's me personally. I don't know. But on July 31st, 2023, Kelsey Doe of Employee Relations asked Ms. Faraji for a meeting. At the meeting, Ms. Doe told Ms. Faraji that there had been complaints of her humming. Ms. Faraji explained that humming is an involuntary subconscious coping mechanism from her diagnosed PTSD and that everyone at Fox knew she hummed. Ms. Faraji further explained that she has been humming since she was a child. She goes into all this with that. Ms. Doe thanked Ms. Faraji for the information, abruptly changed the conversation, and quickly asked whether she had made public comments regarding Mr. Dixon and Ms. Taylor having sex. Ms. Faraji became very scared, as Mr. Dixon had previously assaulted her, and Miss Taylor had warned her that he would fire her if she said anything, and responded that while everyone in the company knew about their relationship, she did not have any information that did not want to comment about it. So she didn't want to comment about this one. Miss Doe then tried to end the conversation and asked if Miss Faraji had any questions. Miss Faraji then began crying, asking why such a swift investigation took place regarding her humming, but no one cared about Miss M threatening to kill her, while others mocking her English. Miss Faraji then explained that all she wants is a safe, normal work environment, but everyone mistreats her because there are no consequences for them. While she focused on others mocking her English, she was thinking of her interactions with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Bayless. On August 3rd, 2023, Ms. Peretti told approximately 8 of Ms. Faraji's coworkers not to associate with Ms. Faraji as she had a pending case with HR. Ms. Faraji was confused as from her perspective, she did not have a pending case with HR. Employee Relations had only called her in to answer questions regarding Ms. Taylor. On August 9, 2023, Ms. Peretti told Ms. Faraji that her services were officially no longer needed on Speak. Ms. Faraji diary entry for that date states that they're only taking me off the show because I reported Joy. After I reported that, they took me off the show. That must be illegal. On August 21st, 2023, Kim Bouvet, a Fox Sports Executive Vice President of Human Resources and Business Relationships Operations, and Drucker asked Mr. Bayless for a meeting. When Mr. Bayless arrived, Ms. Bouvet and Mr. Drucker called. Drucker told Mr. Bayless not to worry and that his job was safe. Then the two started interrogating him on whether he had a romantic relationship with Miss Faraji and whether she had offered him sex. When Mr. Bayless responded truthfully that she had never offered him sex, they again told him not to worry about his job, that it was safe, heavily implying that they wanted him to say otherwise. The circular conversation took place for approximately 20 minutes. Following the meeting, Mr. Dixon called Mr. Bayless and asked why he didn't just lie. Mr. Bayless responded that he cares about Miss Faraji. Mr. Dixon responded, "Who cares? I can get you a better looking hairstylist." The investigation is indicative of the role of HR in employee relations as a protector of abusers and wrongdoers. Inexplicably, Flotz has allowed HR and employee relations to be personally intermingled with other departments and high-level decision makers to their own benefit. For example, Afez Tajani was promoted from HR to a producer. That's interesting. HR to a producer after he turned a blind eye to various allegations. Shortly after his promotion, Miss Faraji noticed that he was at Fox early in the morning. Miss Faraji asked him why he was in so early, and he responded that he is now producing the show because of our great boss, Charlie Dixon, who has the power to do it, has made me a producer. Miss Faraji asked, "That's all you need, a powerful man. You don't need experience." Mr. Tajani pompously responded, "Yes, that's correct, Noushin." I mean, that is, wow, that's sad, but it is very true. And if they are connected like that, that is quite inappropriate to be crossing those kind of lines. Okay, so all this eventually leads to Miss Faraji being fired. So in late August 2023, Mr. Bayless learned that Mr. Sharp and Miss Faraji had never been involved romantically. Subsequently, Mr. Bayless pulled Miss Faraji aside for a conversation. During this conversation, Mr. Bayless apologized for accusing her of having sex with Mr. Sharp, disclosed details regarding his August 21st, 2023 meeting with HR, and further disclosed that Mr. Dixon wants Miss Faraji fired because she knew too much and she was talking. Mr. Bayless also disclosed that he believed Mr. Dixon kept his wife on Fox's payroll to keep her silent about his affairs with Fox employees. Mr. Bayless asked Ms. Faraji out to dinner to continue the conversation, but Ms. Faraji could decline, stating that she cannot do anything that gives an inference to a non-work relationship because she wants to keep her job. Why do you want to keep this job? Why? I definitely have that question now. On October 18th, 2023, Mr. Bayless told Ms. Faraji that Mr. Dixon was continuing to push him to ask for a different hairstylist, but Mr. Bayless refused. Ms. Faraji's diary entry for that day states, "I feel desperate. I don't know how to save my job. Charlie is the bit boss, and I'm just a hairstylist with no power. Skip said that Joy is telling Charlie to get rid of me. That's crazy." In October 20th, 2023, Mr. Bayless told Ms. Faraji that Mr. Dixon had threatened his job because he continuously requested Ms. Faraji, stating that he would rather have another pretty girl on Undisputed over Mr. Bayless anyway. On December 21st, 2023, Mr. Bayless told Ms. Faraji that he still loved her and confided that Mr. Dixon was the one who had told him that Ms. Faraji was sleeping with Mr. Sharp. Wow. Wow. So now he's saying that Charlie is the ringleader in all this. This is what y'all are talking about. This is weird. Mr. Bayless then again tried to have sex with Miss Faraji. Miss Faraji's diary entry for that day states, "I said, Skip, I'm only interested in working with you and having friendship relationship with you and nothing else. He said you have no idea you are losing everything. I don't know what he means by that, and I hope he doesn't take me off the show. It makes me sick to my stomach, and it's really hard for me to work like this. I hope God helps me because Fox is supporting people like Charlie and Skip." Miss Faraji lets it be known that she will support a co-worker. Um, on December 17th, 2023, one of Miss Faraji's co-workers was indefinitely taken off schedule after she took offense to bullying and racist comments by Fox NFL hosts. Over the next few months, Miss Faraji made it known amongst the department that if needed, she would speak out on her co-worker's behalf. Miss Peretti responded, "If it's so hard for you here, why don't you quit?" Miss Peretti also later commented, "I don't regret anything I did to coworker or I don't regret anything I did to," they left out the names. "This was especially cruel as she knew one of the coworkers had tried to commit suicide." Miss Faraji reached out to Miss Drucker and asked if she could get an attorney. Miss Drucker responded that she does not need an attorney. And now she's fired. On approximately June 24th, 2024, a talent member disclosed to Miss Faraji that Undisputed was going to be canceled and that Mr. Bayless was going to be fired. Miss Faraji grew internally anxious that Mr. Dixon was trying to get her fired. Later that week on Monday, Miss Faraji gave Mr. Bayless a haircut. During the haircut, Mr. Bayless told her about a new opportunity he was suspecting outside of Fox. Miss Faraji asked if he would still be coming back to Undisputed, and he replied, "Of course." Mr. Bayless then told Miss Faraji that he fantasizes about having sex with her and asked about how much money it would take for her to have sex with him. Miss Faraji stated that she already refused 1.5 million and that answer wasn't going to change. Wow, he was going to add to that 1.5 million, she's saying. Mr. Bayless replied, "The more you say no, the more I want you." Oh, that's psycho. That's psycho. On August 2nd, 2024, Undisputed was canceled. Mr. Bayless was fired, and Miss Faraji was taken off schedule. Miss Peretti told uh, Miss Faraji that there was no longer a need for her. That same day, Mr. Bayless asked Miss Faraji to walk into the car. On his way out, Miss Faraji felt that she had no choice but to walk him to his car. Once at the car, they noticed Mr. Dixon in the parking lot looking at them. Mr. Bayless told Faraji, "Fuck Charlie. If you want to sue them, go for it. Fuck them. Charlie is not going to sleep tonight. He's scared of what I'm going to tell you. Fuck him." That same day, Miss Faraji reached out to Fox, asked why she was taken off the schedule, and explained that although Undisputed had been canceled, that she could work on the herd, that she's worked on the herd for over 5 years, speak for over a year, and talent continued to request her. Fox did not provide a Fox did not provide a substantive response, so they would investigate the issue. On August 5th, 2024, Ms. Faraji was asked to give Mr. Silverman a haircut in the same manner she had been doing over the past 7 years. Ms. Faraji then reached out to Fox to ask what she should do, and she did not want to let Mr. Silverman down. The next day, Fox again did not provide a substantive response, but said they are continuing to investigate the issue. On August 8th, 2024, after finishing their investigation, Fox was finally able to muster the following pretextual reasoning for firing Ms. Faraji. They can only afford to have one hairdresser work on all three shows: a new morning show, Speak, and Undisputed. Ms. Faraji's fears actualized as she realized that she had become a target. Fox systematically reduced her work schedule and ultimately terminated her employment by removing her from the schedule entirely, using fabricated business necessities as a pretext. Guided by their attorneys, Fox then implemented the revised schedule, assigning a single hairdresser to cover all three shows for approximately 3 months. Once Fox believed it had sufficiently justified its actions from a legal standpoint, they reverted to their long-standing scheduling arrangement, which included one hair and makeup professional in the morning and another set in the afternoon. The same arrangement that had been in place for years during Ms. Faraji's tenure. In addition, Fox employed a barber to work exclusively on the new morning show. And then you had a lawsuit. It goes into her life afterwards. Is talking about her being in therapy. Um, she concluded that she never wants to work for Mr. Bayless again. I'm glad she got to that conclusion. Feels ashamed for working with him for so many years and is able to better control intrusive thoughts of Mr. Dixon hurting her again. In response to her feelings of shame, embarrassment, and fear, her therapist told her that she had only been doing what she thought she needed to do to survive. I'm glad she was able to rework that train of thinking. That's important, and it is a hurdle to get over. At this point, Ms. Faraji seeks justice. She knows that Mr. Dixon used his position of power to coerce women into having sex with him and used it as a justification to grope Ms. Faraji. She knows that Mr. Dixon did not immediately fire her after Ms. Taylor and Ms. Faraji had a falling out, only to appease Mr. Bayless by providing him with a playful thing. Despite Ms. Faraji being an excellent hairdresser and continuously being requested by talent, she has shrunken down to how much she could appease Mr. Bayless. And once Mr. Bayless was gone, so was her job. To date, talent continues to ask for Ms. Faraji at Fox, including Mr. Cowherd, who posted a poll on the Twitter page at the Herd on December 18, 2024, asking if he should get a haircut, with 63.2% responding that he should. Ms. Faraji also continues to be requested by and works for high-profile clients who do not abuse her. And following Ms. Faraji's departure from Fox, Mr. Bayless began featuring his wife on his podcast. On information and belief, he changed the cell phone number he had maintained for many years, presumably in the hopes of removing and deleting incriminating messages, presumably after receiving notice of the pending lawsuit of Fox. yeah, if you had these text messages, because you'll have them on your end, I hope she supplies this evidence. Because normally they have put this evidence within the documents, but none of the text messages, the alleged text messages, are included in this document. And there are a lot of accusations and stuff with that. And a lot of stuff with Skip is documented apparently over text. So I would hope that she has them. And we see some of those that come forward. So this was dated and signed on January 3rd, 2025. So we are fresh within this lawsuit. And there you have it, the whole tea, the full tea, nothing but the tea. And I just say, y'all, like, it's not unbelievable like that it didn't happen. I don't know if everything happened the exact way as portrayed, but I'm just very disappointed. Very disappointed. But it makes me also examine, what are we doing when it comes to sports TV? And I've always had this issue. And when it comes to the way that shows are designed, you always got to have the pretty woman being the moderator. And she is just there, barely offering opinions, barely. I'm thinking of the Mollys, of the Joys, of all these people. Um, and they're just kind of there to moderate and move things along, throw things to the boys. But they all have these similar statutes. You know, if a heavier set woman, can a heavier set woman do that position? If not, why? We got to ask our questions there. Why? Like, why are we succumbing to this male gaze? And that comes from all these men. And I'm saying, like, overwhelming majority white men, and the same type of white man. I would say that because you can have diversity within white men, but it's that same type. And it's it's just sick. It's like this boys club culture that we got to break out of. So it just makes me examine, like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this all about? And I feel like women are in the catch 22 with that, because you want to play a game to get to where you want, but is this actually your talent? That amount of sacrifice, are you actually showcasing talent? Do you get to showcase talent, or are you showcasing a pretty face and for judgment and for people just to judge you and say all these things? Um, that's people like a Jamel Hill. That's why I've always, like, for somebody like Jamel's always been my girl. And I used to love working on like Numbers Never Lie and that kind of stuff with her and Mike, where it was so equal, the back and forth. And like some people like Amina, Cons and stuff, um, that play that role where they're able to have more of a voice. This whole moderator and the moderator always has to be a woman and always has to have this certain look. That's so stale. That's so old. That's so played out. Let's start to reinvent this wheel. This situations like this. This guy, no, no, sir. Joy, I got questions, girl. I do. I mean, I understand the puss can be powerful to use that, but gosh, mm-mm-mm. I I guess I just go back and forth with myself and how I feel about that, because if you are, it's all about the situations you're putting yourself in, I guess, and I feel like people have control of their own bodies and the agencies and ways that you use your bodies, but there's a consequence that comes with that, and you can't. I don't know. There's just, if you have this, if this is true, and the way that you moved about this, that's not cool. I can't respect that. Um, Skip, nasty old cuss. Mm, nasty, nasty man. If this is true, good God, nieste. So I need people not to be as hard on her as you, and not to give equal weight to this man, and particularly this one. Like you are the true villain of this story, Mr. Charlie Dixon. If this is accurate, this is your real villain and what needs to be the face of everything. Because good Lord, the track record seems crazy. Yeah, I'm interested what y'all think. Share your thoughts once you think about the case, and we will be covering more. All right, stay tuned and see you next time on the couch.